If you remember on my last video, I took you through a number of traditional local meat dishes. Now, one of them was called Zorza, the pork loin fried in paprika, and I ended up at a place which had the most appalling ratings. I didn't think the food was that bad, or that dish, because it's the only thing I had, but I thought I'd better go somewhere I knew to be good and try the dish there and confirm my suspicions that that dish was perfectly fine. So today's vlog is all about retrying and revisiting the dish of Zorza. So given it's my last evening in Santiago de Compostela, and indeed Galicia on this part of my tour, I thought, well, I've got to try this dish again, and I know where to go because I'd been to this restaurant, Sexto II, a couple of times and I'd seen it on the menu without ordering it. And am I glad I reserved. Now, a big queue is usually a good thing, although some people were just taking drinks and smoking outside, but people speaking Spanish and queuing usually means the place is good. And at the end of the meal, I did pan around to give you an idea of the interior, because I didn't want to film a load of other people eating. But very nice interior, well-spaced tables with screens, and quite a nice bar area with, most importantly, a wine fridge. So the Zorza was a given, and to go with it, I went for the veal shank, the jarrete de ternera, or ternera. I'm terrible with my stress in Spanish. And the one dish I could have tried, which I haven't had here, is empanada, a famous Galician dish, but you get that all over Spain, as you do jarrete, but I wanted to try that. I never tried it before. And I went for a red wine by the glass, a Mencía, a local grape, and as always in Spain, the red wine, or white wine even, served by the glass, there's nothing to be ashamed about. It's never shabby, it's always decent. And of course, Galician red wines are a bit of a rising star in Spain, not to be overlooked. So, cometh the hour, cometh the Zorza, and I have to say it didn't look terribly different to the other version I had, but it turned out that it was slightly better, but not by much. And of course I'm not into my Glasgow salad or chips, which is the usual accompaniment to Zorza, but I prefer a green salad instead myself. And in terms of the taste, well, in terms of the taste, I didn't notice a big difference. I thought this sauce or preparation was slightly richer, but the other place wasn't too bad at all. But okay, this was a bit better. Now, on to the veal shank. While Spanish cuisine utilises dairy cattle for some of its steaks, for most of the other beef dishes, veal is the preferred choice. And I went for this dish because I've never had it before, and I often like the fatty cuts of meat. And as you can see, it's served in a sort of juice or a gravy made from the meat juices, and a few roasted potatoes. It'll have been slow cooked for a number of hours, so asking for these things rare is not really a possibility or even a wise thing. Always best in Spain, usually just let them bring it how it should be cooked. So one thing that quite surprised me when I cut it open was that the meat was still pretty red inside. I don't know how they do that, but I'm grateful they did, because for me it adds more flavour. It was a juicy, moist piece of meat that wasn't, of course, overcooked. To be honest, a more tender cut of meat you couldn't ask for, and when you eat it, I mean, it really does melt in your mouth. The globules of fat, the flesh, the juice and the gravy. I mean, it really is a great melange. It's like peaches and cream. All in all, a very, very slurp-worthy meal, if I may say so. And of course, one more thing before we leave Galicia. Of course, yes, it's my favourite dessert in Galicia, the Tarta de Santiago, the almond cake. And I was told they make it themselves. Always look or listen for the word casero, because that means it's homemade. And a quick close-up for those of you who haven't seen it feature in some of my earlier videos. There you are, it's like marzipan in a cake, but obviously not the same consistency as marzipan, a lot firmer. The coffee was a light to medium roast and slipped down pretty well, I have to say. Not dark or as dark as I like, but still pretty good, I think. And finally, a liqueur or a chupito or a shot offered on the house. This was liqueur de hierbas, which is a herbal liquor. It is slightly sweet and it is supposed to aid with digestion. Possibly doesn't aid with the sobriety, but I always like these at the end of a meal. And as always, the bill was very reasonable for such a splendid meal. I was well fed and watered, great red wine, meat, dessert and coffee. €43.10, pretty good value for what was more than a normal person would eat. And in fact, as you notice, I didn't eat the chips and I left half of the beef because I was pretty satisfied. That's not to say it was anything other than delicious. Anyway, this was the last of my series in Galicia, but plenty more content coming from my mutton tour of Spain. So I'm going to love you and leave you, and don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.